Welcome back to the Coleman channel, and welcome back to another installment of Behind the Process, the series where we look into the creative process, the behind the scenes, the making of things. And today, because it's been a little while, we are going to do another collaboration with StudioFV, the media production company of which I do videography for and editing for and all that kind of stuff. And once again, if you are interested in looking into some of the work that we've done, or you're interested in any kind of a quote for any projects you may have on the horizon, please feel free to check out the website at studiofv.co.uk. You can see our show reel, some of the projects we've worked on, some photography we've done before, and all of the contact details will be down there for you to look at. If you're a Paisley company, we'll be doing a discount for you, for local Paisley businesses and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, throwing that out there, if you're interested, please do feel free to hit us up. And today's project we are going to be talking about is probably one of the funnest ones that we've done, I think. One of the most interesting, socially engaging ones that we've ever done before, and that is quite simply called Fridays for Future March. So the video for the Fridays for Future March was released on the 30th of November 2021. This was another one that I myself edited together, and there was a few of us basically out there getting footage and all that kind of stuff for it. This was not a paid commission or anything like that. This was another example of us basically just trying to go out and get footage of different kinds of things. Obviously the first ever installment of Behind the Process we ever did was talking about Coffee Break, the short Halloween horror that we did in-house, which was of course an attempt to basically just get some footage together. And the Fridays for Future March was no different, of course. It was a very prime opportunity to get some really good footage. It was happening in the heart of Glasgow, the biggest city in Scotland. We all live very much nearby. There was a lot of people there, and it was a very massive event. Obviously, it was happening in the run-up to COP26, which was the big important climate change conference that was happening in 2021, happening in Glasgow, which is very exciting stuff. And obviously because of this big conversation, this big conference going on in Glasgow about climate change, there was of course a large number of marches going on in Glasgow, day in, day out, with many different groups representing, talking about different things, talking about their thoughts on the conference, protesting about how nothing's going to get done. There was a lot of different voices there talking about a lot of different things, and we at the studio thought it'd be a very good idea to go out there and talk to some of these people, kind of documentary style, I suppose, and also kind of from an anthropology kind of angle, is kind of the study and observation of human behaviour and how people behave and all that kind of stuff. And that's something that's very interesting to me, and I thought the Fridays for Future March would be a good example to get the voice of various different people and talk to them and interview them and all that kind of stuff. So when we start talking about how are we gonna, what angle are we gonna come at this march from, like how are we gonna talk to people, what is the video gonna be like, and the first suggestion I had, and my biggest inspiration for this particular thing in terms of going out and just interviewing people, was of course Andrew Callaghan, who I think is one of the, if not the best journalist on the internet, and at large at this current point in time. You might know him as the host and the lead interviewer of Channel 5 Action News, and formerly All Gas No Breaks. And Andrew Callaghan basically just goes around America talking to very strange people, going to very weird conferences. He interviews very interesting people in very interesting settings, and then of course he does some very serious journalism as well. Like the most recent one, of course, is he is in Ukraine at this current point in time, interviewing the people that have escaped Ukraine during the Russian invasion. So he's doing very serious stuff as well, and he was my major inspiration in terms of how to approach this particular march. There's tens of thousands of people turning up that day. I think the final number was 50,000 people. I might be a bit more, a bit less, I can't quite remember. But the way I wanted to do it was quite simple. I wanted to just get into the heart of the march, be right in the centre of the whole thing. There was 4 of us in Glasgow. We split into teams of 2, and then we were just basically the idea was to walk around through the march, find interesting people that looked like they looked quite interesting. They might have something interesting to say. They're maybe a little bit offbeat and kooky, or you know, they're at the center of things. You know, with big, you know, banners or megaphones. You know, they were in front of the march, whatever. Just the people that were like looked the most fascinating to talk to, and talk to them. And how I did that, it was I had a big setup. Well, I didn't have a massive setup on me actually. I was simply carrying our small gimbal camera, which is the DJI Pocket 1. I was also carrying a mic on me. I think it was the Zoom recorder. Yes, it was the Zoom H5. I had the Zoom H5 audio recorder on me to record the interviews. My friend Sophie, who's part of the studio, also brought some Rode wireless lav mics to basically capture audio while we're walking around the crowd and talking to the people and all that kind of stuff. And then the other videographer Dylan and our creative director Lou broke off, and Dylan had the Canon XF 400, just a big old shotgun mic on that. And then they basically went out and did the same thing, just interviewing people and just capturing moments and scenes of the march. Yeah, it was very, very exciting. It was a big thing to be part of. There was a lot of people. There was a lot of like coming out of our comfort zones, because it was very busy and very cramped. It was a very long walk going from, I think it was Kelvin Grove Park. I'll put a map up on the screen if you're not familiar with Glasgow. It was from Kelvin Grove Park all the way down to George Square, pretty much in the middle of Glasgow, which is not a very long walk, but because there was a lot of waiting and a massive crowd of people, it went on for a good couple of hours. And basically at that point, we were just walking in amongst the crowd, breaking out of the crowd to get some nice B-roll footage, and just jumping in and out, talking to interesting people to see what their thoughts were on the march, what their thoughts were on the COP26 conference and all that kind of stuff. And we did meet some very interesting people during that march. One of the most interesting ones that we were not expecting to get at all. This was actually before we even got into the march itself. We were walking past, I think Glasgow University, I think we were walking past, and there was actually an art installation there in response to COP26. It was made by an Irish artist. I believe his name was John Gerard, very talented individual. Was not expecting to see him there at all, but he was exhibiting this art piece that he called Flare, which was a simulation, a CG kind of art piece that represented the burning ocean, like, you know, the heating up of the ocean due to like greenhouse gases. So it was a very fascinating art piece, a very lucky find for the interviewing, and a good practice as well, because again, it's a whole comfort zone thing. I've never, you know, just walked up to someone with a mic and a camera and just started asking them for an interview. But I was very much inspired by the attitudes, I suppose, of Andrew Callahan and his team, just to be able to walk up to people and talk to them. And it's something I've always been interested in terms of like gauging thoughts from people in that way. So it was very exciting at the same time. I basically just asked them the same kind of way, you know, what are you doing here, and what is the purpose, and what are your thoughts on COP26 and the march and all that kind of stuff. So it was good, engaging stuff. But that was a very lucky interview that we got there at the beginning, and the first interview that appears in the video as well. But yeah, there was a lot of very interesting people there, a lot of interesting sights to film and all that kind of stuff. You know, there was a lot of police, obviously. Police on their brand new electric motorcycles just in time for COP26, ironically enough. Which we got a lot of clips of that. You know, a big helicopter looking down upon the whole crowd and the march and all that kind of stuff. Just a lot of B-roll to emphasize the sheer number of people and the sheer like number of like, you know, unique art and stuff these people were bringing over in terms of like posters and like, you know, picket signs and all that kind of stuff was pretty fascinating to look at. And then, you know, again, interviews from all manner of different people. Like there was people from, I think just represent like socialist parties, of course. There was a lot of that there. Extinction Rebellion, we got a few interviews with some Extinction Rebellion people. They're just like a bunch of people that, you know, do civil disobedience things in order to make a change and stuff like that. Not controversial people, but certainly people that are like, I mean, it depends on who you meet as well, because they all do things differently and all that kind of stuff, but they are, you know, there's different opinions of them. But the people that we met were pretty peaceful, and they just brought different kind of like art pieces and stuff to, you know, represent their thoughts on the march and stuff like that. But there was a few different people from representing Extinction Rebellion. So one of them was from Wales, which is quite interesting, just to see a lot of different people appear from all across the United Kingdom, essentially, to come down to Scotland. We got to interview a good number of them. I think probably the most fascinating individual that we met, this was not even one that I found, it was, I think the other videographer Dylan was able to find him. Very much the kind of person I was wanting to find. This was just an absolute, a character. It was a character, to say the least. He was an English gentleman, kind of looked like some sort of a tree wizard, perhaps, trying to summon some, I don't know, some shrubbery or some greens, perhaps. A very fascinating character. Basically speaking very frankly about how COP26 is going to do essentially nothing. But he was very impassioned about the entire situation and how nothing really seemed to change, and he had a lot of interesting things to say and a very impassioned things to say. And of course he had to sing, which was just the greatest thing ever. He had an interesting song. I think it was a Shakin' Stevens song. Can't remember the original name of it, but he turned it into a whole climate change kind of thing. So that was absolutely fantastic that we got to find that guy. He was an interesting character again. And let me tell you, the song that we included, that was a much shorter version of, he sung the whole song. Yeah, he was. He sang the whole song, which is pretty funny. And this is an interesting part of the process here, because obviously the individual swears while he's talking about certain aspects of, like, you know, budgets being made in terms of things getting built that are unsustainable for the planet and the climate and stuff like that. Basically he just says, tell me what fucking sense is that? And there was a big debate over whether we should the swear should be censored or not. I was personally the party that it shouldn't, and I still probably would be still. I think, because my argument was basically like its expression and its emphasis on how impassioned it is and stuff like that. You know, you can say what you want about it being a bad word, but it's a perfect emphasis on how impassioned he is about this particular subject and stuff. But I think eventually we met in the middle, and because a lot of people wanted it bleeped out, which I think is ridiculous. So eventually we just took the audio out of the word fucking, so it just goes silent, which I can live with. You know, we didn't censor his mouth or anything like that. It's as close to being as left alone as it can be, while respecting the fact that, you know, it's a swear word, it's a curse word, and it should be left alone and stuff. Where does the line get drawn with these things? It was an interesting conversation, because, you know, I was very much of the saying that it should be left alone, and people were saying that it should not, that it should be, you know, altered and stuff. But, you know, this is the creative process, and it's how, you know, we're talking about who's this getting marketed to, and, you know, why it should be left alone, why it shouldn't be left alone. You know, it was a good conversation to have in terms of addressing it. But I think the way we met in the middle was a good way to meet in the middle. We're still letting him express himself and leaving it alone, but we're just taking the word itself out. But you can still, you can read it in his mouth and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm okay with that decision, basically. I almost forgot, actually. One of my favourite things that we did, we had a GoPro, which we've never used in the office before. We had the GoPro and like a chest mount, and I figured it'd be really cool to get like almost like a first person perspective filming with the GoPro, you know, from like from a chest kind of view, walking around through the march and stuff like that, almost like again a first person experience of what it was like to be in amongst it all. So I had the GoPro Mark II on me as well, and I think the best shot that we got from the GoPro cam was there was this interesting art piece of a person who made like a massive kind of like papier-mâché doll called Displaced Dora, which I guess was about, you know, I think it, you know, made for like the refugees and all that kind of stuff. And we got a really good shot, first person shot of me coming up and shaking Displaced Dora's hand, which is pretty cool. Not the first time, that wouldn't be the last time we would see Displaced Dora as well. There was another project that we worked on later on down the line, which we'll talk about at one point in Behind the Process, where Displaced Dora is a recurring character, which is pretty fascinating. That's another aspect of Andrew Callahan's work that I really enjoy. This is almost like a shared, these characters are recurring and they turn up again and again, because, you know, these places they go are very much the similar kind of crowds appear. So Displaced Dora was our was our recurring character, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we'll talk about that project at some point. I also spoke to the Animal Welfare Party, which is really exciting because they were the people that were like literally leading the charge of the whole march. They always said the only reason was because they had the biggest art piece. But it was cool to get to speak to the people right there in front, basically leading the march. It was a pretty exciting thing to do. And they had some interesting thoughts on the whole thing. Very impassioned things to say, as per usual. Sadly, like, we did get to the end of the march, and that's when there was like speakers coming out and all that kind of stuff, representing different people. And we did get some very nice footage and photography of those people, but they did make the final cut. The video came out to nearly 6 minutes long. And it was going to be way longer. Like, I almost made it 20 minutes long, which is way too long. But this is me wanting to make it more of a long form, interesting kind of documentary piece. But I guess at the end there wasn't a lot of crazy things happening. It was a very simple march. Would have warranted being longer if we got some more crazy zany characters, I guess, to speak to, much like the Greenwash character. But you know, it wasn't to be. I think it's better off being that short anyway. It should stay 5 minutes and 49 seconds. But we did get some good photography from the end of the march in George Square. And the main thing we were waiting for was Greta Thunberg to come out, who's, you know, a big leading figure in the climate change discussion, and she was supposed to be the last person to come out, but we basically weren't sticking around that long. It's a shame, but it was getting pretty late. It was getting very cold, and there was a lot of people, and our batteries were dying by the second, so it basically just wasn't to be. We didn't get to record anything from Greta, because obviously the idea is to leave the best for last kind of thing, so we didn't stick around for that long to find out. And I guess in terms of like the whole thing, there's a couple of things that were like thought of that we tried to do but didn't really work out, or some things that we should have done better. For example, the main thing was the batteries. Obviously when we split up, one party had all of the batteries, like the AA batteries for the Zoom recorder, the batteries for the GoPro, the DJI Pocket doesn't take batteries because it's just a chargeable thing. But yeah, eventually the GoPro did die eventually, and I didn't have any batteries on me, so I was we should have probably grabbed, you know, two of the batteries we needed from each other before we split up. But obviously, you know, that was a decision that we made, and we moved too quick. But these things happen, of course. And we also tried to do some more Instagram kind of TikTok coverage as well, because we have an Instagram account if you want to check that out. We've got a TikTok account, but we've not really used it yet, which is a problem, because we're trying to use more of our social medias, and we're trying to do more of kind of a TikTok-y mid, you know, sequence, you know, different break points in the march where I was speaking to the camera. I think Sophie was recording me, you know, portrait style obviously, and you know, just talk about what's been going on in the march, what point in the march we're at, who we've spoken to, what funny things happened, like us getting chased out of a front garden at one point because there was a massive street filled with people, and basically we were trying to get coverage. So instead of being in amongst the crowd, we were basically going through front gardens and flats and stuff, which is pretty rude. But I was able to sweet talk the person that was telling us to go away, because they basically closed the gate in front of us, and you know, we were getting told off, and I was like, hey man, you know, we're not just people, we're trying to get coverage, we're making a video and all that kind of stuff, we're trying to get some coverage of the march and all that kind of thing, we're not just dudes. And then they did eventually let us through, which is you know, nice enough of them. I can understand why it's annoying, but you know, I was able to sweet talk our way through that situation. You know, stuff like that is what we talked about, but it just never made the cut really. We didn't use any of it, which is unfortunate because it was a good idea. I guess the execution wasn't what we wanted it to be. But you know, other than that, considering how fast we made the decision to go out there and do it on our own backs as well, essentially, I think we did a pretty good job in getting a lot of coverage, and you know, basically being there for a very long time, because it was a bit of a trek, and you know, it was a bit of a graft as well, just because of how many people were out there and how long the march went on for. But it was a very exciting thing. It was a very exciting part of history to be part of as well. You know, regardless of what your thoughts were on the march, on the conference, the different like groups of people there for the different voices, regardless of what your thoughts were on any of that, whether you're impartial or not, it was very exciting to just be there, you know, getting the coverage and talking to these people, and getting just different slices of life, essentially. Again, getting from that anthropology kind of side of things, with different thoughts of people and what their thoughts were on the march and the conference and stuff like that. And doing something different as well, like running out and getting interviews, kind of like and just going out doing something different with the interview style, as opposed to like setting up a tripod for a proper interview of questions. Just going out and speaking to people right there and then. It was a very different thing that I've never done before, but it was very exciting, and I'm glad to have done it. And getting to edit and all that kind of stuff is very exciting as well. But yeah, it was just a really cool experience. I got some good footage out of it that we're using in our new showreel, which we're making as we speak, which is very exciting stuff. It's just an interesting bit of history that's been captured, really, and I think we did a pretty good job of it. I'm quite happy that we went out to do it. And I think that will do it. I think that's the behind the process, behind the scenes, the making of the Fridays for Future March mini doc piece, journalistic piece perhaps, and the thoughts going into the inspirations behind it, how we approached it, what angle we went from, who we talked to, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a pretty comprehensive guide as to what happened with that. Oh yes, another thing that's pretty cool I should bring up. Wait here. Got it here, everybody. For the event, I have here my very own StudioFV press pass, event photographer, right there. This is a pretty fun part of the whole thing. Needless to say, we made these ourselves. Obviously, we are a media production company. I would say we would be considered official press. We just didn't have anything like this, and we figured we would bring kind of like press-a passes like this to get more easier access into the busier parts of the march that a lot of newscasters and stuff were getting into. So we geniusly put all of these together and made a bunch of these StudioFV press passes, which you can see me wearing in the video itself. Actually, we literally just printed these off. Greg, the general manager of StudioFV, literally just put these together with the StudioFV logo, which he designed. Press, event photographer, and a QR code that takes you to the website. Feel free to scan that if you're interested, or you need to click any links. And then we literally just laminated them. We got these lanyards here, and Bob's your uncle. There we go, some perfectly acceptable homemade event press passes for StudioFV, which we all wore on the day to get us into the more exclusive places, I suppose. And we use these this day when we're going to very exciting public events and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's another aspect that was brought about as a result of this march. So very exciting stuff. But yeah, I think that's going to do it. Thank you all very much for tuning in to another installment of Behind the Process, another StudioFV collab, because it's been a little while. Again, feel free to check out the website, scan that QR code earlier on in the video. Check out the StudioFV YouTube channel if you want to check out some of these videos. The Fridays for Future March video will be linked in the description below of this video. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to check out the website and hit us up if you need a quote for any kind of video or you're going to be working on our project. And of course, while you're on the Coleman channel, feel free to hit the subscribe, like, comment, share, bell. Check out some more videos like the Tube Review, Coleman's Perspective, and be sure to check out the Twitch, Coleman Live. We are now officially affiliate, ladies and gentlemen. We are now affiliate on Twitch. Check out, hit the follow button. Feel free to donate some cash, become a sub, whatever you want to do. It's very, very exciting stuff, lads. So yeah, feel free to check out. Thank you all for watching. I have been Coleman, and this is also StudioFV. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.